It's me, Dee Snider. Yeah, you know me from Twisted Sister. And you're watching Metal from the Inside with Sydney Taylor. Yeah.
You've tuned in to the most crazy rocking metal podcast on the air. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Metal from the Inside.
Everybody, welcome back to the Metal from the Inside podcast. I am joined by a hard rock and heavy metal legend, Mr. Dee Snider. Thank you so much for coming on, Dee. It's an honor to have you.
It's great to be here, actually. Really great.
Yeah, so I know you have your new album, Leave a Scar, coming out on July 30th, via Napalm and everything. And before we kind of get into the details of the record, I kind of wanted to get into just the background of what made you put this one together, because, in your kind of promotion for this, we heard that back in 2019, you kind of had decided that this was going to be, that was the end. You're going to kind of retire, for lack of a better word, from touring and live shows and all that stuff. So first, what was a catalyst for that decision back then? And secondly, what kind of, prompted you to want to hop back into it after COVID and kind of record this new record?
Well, in 2019, I really enjoyed reap the rewards of the success of For the Love of Metal. Thanks to Jamey Jasta and company and his production team, I found my place. I found my voice. I found success in my return to true metal, which is a passion of mine. And I just got there at the end of 2019, a couple of years touring on For the Love of Metal. And I got to be honest, a part of me felt like, I said, you know what? This is a high note. Maybe I should just drop the mic and walk away. It's like, why take a chance of screwing that up? Like, the album went top 20 on the Billboard charts. I mean, I hadn't been there in decades. So it was one of the number one metal albums of the year all around the world. So I said, now's a good time to leave. But cut to 2020, COVID, the state of the world, and I found myself just saying, I got to rock again. And it's kind of a stupid, silly statement to make. I'm sure one that many, many people have said, sitting there binge watching TV. But I also, it was just a matter of realizing that I needed to say something. What's going on in the world? Someone needed to say something. And I've been given that voice. I've been given that position where people pay attention when I scream, we're not going to take it, in their faces. So I had to scream.
Yeah. And I mean, I've loved it because too, I've been following you on social media and everything throughout, throughout COVID and everything, but I love you and your posts because you're always just so honest in like the best way, and I feel like we need that so much. You've always been that way though. So it hasn't been a shock that you were that way during all of this stuff,
Well, thank you for saying that and for supporting and following me that way. But that was people think the tweets don't matter, posts don't matter. It was a single tweet that sort of pushed me over the edge with recording. And I was, as you know, I was ranting and raving out there saying, people, stand up, say something, push back, don't take this lying down. The extreme left, extreme right are making decisions for us. They are minority, a bullying minority. They're not the majority. And the time for sitting back and hoping things will work out, that's over. And someone wrote to me and said, but Dee, not all of us have a platform or the voice to do that. What should we do? I said, well, get behind someone who's speaking out for you. And then I realized that was me. I said, I'm that guy. And and that was a big realization. Like, yeah, I've got a great life, and yeah, I'm successful, and yeah, I'm living happily ever after. I truly am. I don't feel all that angst and frustration that so many people feel, but it doesn't mean others aren't feeling it. And I have been given that position to speak out on their behalf. So here I am doing it. I called up Jamey Jasta, said, I felt like Ice Cube. Hey, Dre, I got something to say. Hey, Jamey, I got something to say. We got to do another record.
Yeah, so I mean, I know that you worked with Jamey, of course, on For the Love of Metal, and then now again on this record. But I never really was sure kind of how you guys got connected because I mean, I know you were talking a little bit about how you got back into kind of a heavier sound, which definitely the last two records have had. In my opinion, kind of heavier than what you did with Twisted Sister. So
Yeah.
yeah, what was the process of working with Jamey and then kind of finding that sound for your own solo music?
Well, we got first. We got to start with my background historically, as far as musically, I should say. I am a day one metal fan. I'm that age that was there when Black Sabbath first record came out, Zeppelin's first record, Grand Funk's first record, Blue Cheer's first record, Mountain, Deep Purple. I was there. It was called hard rock, and I was a hard rocker. But then that started to change. Eventually, it was branded heavy metal, which, by the way, was a derogatory title given by media. That's why a lot of bands like Zeppelin, AC/DC, Sabbath, they never liked the words heavy metal because it was a put down. It was a dismissive term that the media, that the press gave it. But anyway, so I was a part of one of the guys swinging the axe, breaking up the Woodstock Nation, saying, fuck Country Joe and the Fish, give me freaking Black Sabbath, So I am a metalhead. In all its forms. And I really liked glitter rock of the early 70s, Alice Cooper, David Bowie, T-Rex, bands like that. When Twisted Sister opportunity came, and here I was joining a band that was built on the New York Dolls, I loved it. And I joined gladly because I love that stuff. As I started taking over the writing process, I mixed my love for the glitter rock with my love for heavy metal, and created the Twisted Sister sound, whatever they call it, hair metal now, whatever you want to call it, that more anthemic thing. But I'm a metalhead. And post Twisted, I've continued to stay connected to the community. Thankfully, my 4 kids grown are all metalheads. And through it all, they have kept me in touch, bringing me to shows, listening to stuff they're listening to. So I've been exposed to all metal, and I'm a supporter of metal in all its forms. So I love heavy music. Jamey Jasta, I'm doing his podcast. He challenges me on a podcast to record a true metal album. He said, Dee, you're one of those voices. We lost Dio, we lost Lemmy, we're losing voices. He said that you've got one of those amazing metal voices and it needs to be heard. And I said, I love metal. I love new metal. I just don't know where my place is. He says, I do. He says, let me produce an album for you. So I really did a trust fall with Jamey in that I didn't know, because Jamey, I know Jamey and I love him, but he comes from Hatebreed. They don't even have melodies in their songs. So I was like, what's going to happen here? And all of a sudden, like, he's bringing me to, it's like stuff. Well, and by the way, thank you, Mark Morton, Ollie from All That Remains, rest in peace, Howard Jones, Alyssa White Glues, Joel Grind from Toxic Holocaust. All of these people were contributing to that album. They all came to the party. They were like, wanted to help Dee Snider find his place in today's community. And with For the Love of Metal, they did. So that was where the relationship with Jamey Jasta. It should be noted that I've never used a producer on consecutive records in my career. And the minute I decide to record, Jamey, I want to do another record. Same team. It ain't broke. I ain't going to fix it. Let's keep going.
Yeah, I mean, it's proven to be a success, at least with the first record, and this first single has gotten a lot of good reception, everything like that. And, you were talking about kind of your background and your history with music, and I always love hearing you talk about Alice Cooper because, like you, he's my hero. He's always been my number one.
Who raised you properly? Somebody raised you properly. You certainly weren't there when the first record came out.
No, I wasn't. But I mean, I grew up listening to the likes, which is really funny, of, Twisted Sister and Motley Crue and Def Leppard and Alice Cooper and all, I listened to the 70s stuff and the 80s stuff, but, Alice has always been my kind of number one. So, always hearing you talk about him, it's always been, so cool to hear your passion for him. And, kind of what has it been like for you? Because you went from being a fan like that in the 70s, listening to him and kind of finding your place and fitting in with Alice and his music and just that scene to, doing a song with him. You eventually did, Be Cruel to Your School in the 80s and your friends, and you've interviewed him and hang out. Like, what is that like to just have that kind of experience?
It is completely strange. And when I have I have relationships with people who were fans of mine who over the course of time became business associates or band members or just friends who started as fans. I know exactly how they feel. Robert Plant is another friend of mine. Alice and Robert, I had their posters hanging over my bed. I bowed down each night before I went. Robert Plant, the god of rock, and now to sit and have a dinner with him and talk conversationally and be friendly, it still jumps in my head. But this is wonderful. Life is great that way. And but the thing with Alice, and not the same with Robert for that matter. Alice, I always used to listen to his words and read about him. I go, we could be really good friends. We would be really good friends. I know we would really. Oh, he thinks we're like the same, and we became really good friends. I mean, if you speak to him about me, he speaks glowingly. It's embarrassing, but we have a lot. We have a lot in common, and so I started as a fan, but we're cut from the same. I guess we're cut from a similar cloth.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know you even got to be featured in his documentary and everything. You did Super Duper Alice Cooper, and you were that. That must be crazy. I'm like thinking about it. It must be so insane. But one thing I wanted to really touch on, and you're gonna laugh at this probably because I'm not sure how often you've gotten this, but in my house, when it hits December 1st, I listen to A Twisted Christmas. It is my go-to Christmas record in my entire family. We're like decorating the Christmas tree. It's like, you singing like, "Oh come all you faithful." Like, what was the idea to do that record? Because I mean, I know it was a couple years back at this point, and it was all the original guys and everything. I mean, what was the idea of doing a Christmas record and kind of doing what you guys did with that?
The idea really goes back to the 80s. And it was I'm a Christmas junkie. I love Christmas. Halloween and Christmas are the big holidays. But I was feeling that one time it just, I got 85, 80, somewhere around there. I'm like, putting on the Christmas album, and there's every kind of Christmas at that time. There's traditional, there's jazz, there's Euro disco versions, there's pop. I said, where's the metal other than and I love Phil Spector's 50s style with the Ronettes and Darlene Love, that 50s record. That other than that, there was no metal album. So I started thinking about it one Christmas. I said, oh, you know what? I'm going to reach out to all the guys in the community. I said, I can hear AC/DC doing Silver Bells, and I imagine their version. And I can hear Maiden doing White Christmas, White Christmas. And I hear Priest, I had Thin Lizzy. I had it all figured out, and I never did it. I never followed through on it.
Yeah.
But to 2000, blah, blah. I just don't remember the year. And JJ and I said, I'm not into doing a new Twisted Sister record. I call it going back to the future, trying to write stuff. Because if you try to change, people go, you should stay Twisted Sister. And if you stay the same, it's like, it sounds like the old stuff. You're like, oh, you can't win.
Yeah, there's no winning.
And he said, what about doing a Christmas album, Twisted Christmas? And my brain immediately went back to those thoughts I had and all those arrangements I had. I said, yes. He said, yes. I said, yeah. I said, I'll do that. I always wanted to do that. So I already had all of these, but I didn't reach out. I said, I'm not going to call a priest. Let's do the versions I heard. So there's the one that sounds like it's another thing coming. There's a Maidenish one. There's the AC/DC style one, the Thin Lizzy one. I just did what we planned to do with different bands, but we did them all ourselves.
Yeah, it cracks me up. It's one of those albums that, because it was my dad at first that played that record. It's just become like a family just staple at my house around Christmas. Like,
by the way, you gave me the answer. Hashtag good parenting, everybody. This is good parenting. Hashtag good parenting.
But kind of just touching on Twisted Sister again. I mean, I have to say, I think that you guys have done. And I mean, who knows? I know a lot of people ask you about a reunion and stuff like that. And I mean, I think you guys are one of those bands that have said you were going to end, you ended, and you guys have stayed strong in the fact that you guys have ended. I mean, do you feel the same way? Is there any part of you that might say maybe in the future we do something, or are you kind of standing firm in the fact of we went out on top, that's it?
100% committed to not reuniting. Yeah. Now, let me just be clear. We're friends. I did a show a couple weeks ago, and Mendoza showed up, and we did Under the Blade. It was awesome. I talk to the guys all the time. I could show you my text messages. We have a little text group, and we were like, sending messages back and forth. So that was to me, that was the reason for was Reunite, was to fix the relationships, and we did fix them, and we're friends. I feel we did what we could do without just doing the same thing over, and I wanted to do some new challenging things that I couldn't do within Twisted. And the solo records I've done, I could not have done with Twisted Sister. I could not have done Dee Does Broadway with Twisted Sister. Twisted does Broadway. And I could not have done For the Love of Metal with Twisted Sister. People would never have accepted it.
Yeah.
But as a solo artist, I'm allowed to change and evolve. And some things they've liked, some things they have not liked. But at the same time, I'm allowed. No one's ever questioned. And like, again, if Twisted Sister did it, it would be like, hey, it doesn't sound like Twisted Sister anymore. Right. It would have been that kind of thing. So, could I see a situation? I could see us like doing a couple songs for charity. For the right reasons. We got together originally for charity, which was a good reason to get together. I could see Fallon, who's a big fan. He said, "Hey guys, did you come on the show and do White Christmas for us?" Like, fuck yeah, I mean. But to do a tour, to do 90 minutes, 2 hours on a stage, I don't see that happening. And a credit to everybody in the band. And I know some people, without naming names, some guys, they would have kept going. Others did not want to keep going, but I'm sure we get offers. JJ French is the manager of Twisted, because it's still an entity. There's still royalties and licenses and things like that, and merchandise. He's not presented one offer, and I'm sure we've gotten them, because we're not even considering it. It's just not even, it doesn't matter what they're offering. We're not doing it.
Yeah, because I mean, I feel like, with those last couple of shows you did, because you did the ones in the East Coast, back where you guys started out, I personally just feel like it ended so perfectly. Like, just, you guys really did, go out on top when I feel like you guys should have gone out. And I think that you guys, just ended in the right way.
We filmed a lot of those shows, and we filmed a lot of behind the scenes on the tour. And when that finally comes out, you will see Twisted Sister moments in front of 90,000, 75,000, 50,000 people. And, those are frozen moments for me in time. That's how I remember Twisted Sister. That standing on that stage with an audience, just people were crying. People were crying, but for the right reasons. And not because we were so bad. They were crying because they loved us, and they knew that it was time for us to move on.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of going into your solo stuff again, I mean, I know that obviously, kind of like you just mentioned, I mean, Twisted Sister has a very special place in your heart, and of course your career, and, many people know you for those videos, and, We're Not Going to Take It, I Want to Rock. I mean, does it ever, sometimes when you're focusing on your solo stuff and a new album like this, or even, sometimes when you're doing press, I mean, does it ever kind of bug you that sometimes people focus too much on those videos or on the PMRC hearing? Do you kind of wish sometimes, what you were doing now was what kind of took the main focus?
Never. It's my legacy. It's the pride, is one of the great prides of my life. And I'm so proud of how hard we fought to achieve what we achieved and what we achieved. So no, and matter of fact, when you look at the credits for The Love of Metal, and you look at the credits on here, I thank Eddie, Mark, JJ, and AJ for this. I wouldn't have the records I'm doing now wouldn't exist without my Twisted Sister history. Yeah. Without them doing battle with me, I wouldn't have the life I have. Whatever happens for me, anything's happened. It's all been an offshoot of Twisted Sister, one way or another. So no, I'm happy to answer questions, and like I said, I'm proud.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things where, I mean, I talk to people all the time, I'm in my age group. There are a lot of people who aren't 100% familiar with all the music that I love very much, but you put on We're Not Going to Take It or I Want to Rock or any of those songs, and they're like, I know exactly who that is. I know that song exactly, which is something that I feel like nobody could ever take away from you,
You know, 100%. And, you know, and I always say to young people, I say, I could connect with anybody within, you know, within like 2 or 3 tries.
Yeah.
So, you know, and when I get the young people who go, you like SpongeBob? And we go, yeah. Did you like the SpongeBob movie? Yeah. Remember Goofy Goober Rock at the end, the big finale? Yeah. I wrote that song. It's I Want to Rock. That's my song. That's your song. Yeah. And I was Angry Larry the used shell salesman in the episode where SpongeBob broke Gary's shell. Angry Jack, the used shell salesman.
Yeah.
And they go, oh, wow. You know, and now with Cobra Kai, that's added a whole nother
Right.
recognition thing. I'm telling you, you know, did you see the Cobra Kai episode that I was on?
Yeah. Actually, I'd seen because that show's got all the music and it had you, and it's just like it's been
Yeah.
kind of a big like '80s kind of like almost like revival a little bit with that show.
It's introduced so many younger people to me. And Johnny Lawrence, the Billy Zabka character, says, that's Dee Snider, the most badass rocker ever. That'll be on my gravestone. That's what's going to say. Here lies Dee Snider, the most badass rocker ever. Thank you, Johnny Lawrence. So, but I mean, now you know, the day I spoke to 70 7th graders about censorship. And the reason why, besides the fact that I have my history, they had me because the kids knew me from Cobra Kai. So I had their attention now, you know? So yeah, it's amazing to have these things that connect with people, even younger people, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Dee, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I'm so excited for the record. And before I let you go, do you have any tour dates that are kind of in the works for this record? Is it something that you're going to wait? Because I know some shows are kind of coming back in the fall. Are you just going to wait for 2022 to go on the tour?
Well, you answered the question, which is
Cool.
exactly right. It's so it's really sort of inconsistent now, you know, and unpredictable. And people are still, you know, hemming and hawing. I did a show a couple weeks ago that I filmed, which will be streamed in this month. I don't have the details on that. And I played a lot of new music and some twisted stuff or whatever. And that show was bizarre because when it was booked, it was 200 people, social distance, masked, vaccinated. And then as we got closer, it went to 300, 400. By the night of the show, they just opened the doors and there was lines around the block, and it was just, you wouldn't even know COVID existed. But then 2 days later, I went and did a Kings of Chaos show, which is a Matt Sorum all-star project, and it was a limited audience. And so it's still very, like I said, I'm going to wait till 2022 when things are just under control, figured out, sorted out. I want to be a part of the return to the festival scene. And I want to sing You Can't Stop Rock and Roll with a whole new meaning that I never even thought of when I wrote it in the 70s. You know, it's a statement for the times. You can't stop rock and roll.
Nope, you can't. And we will be back. We're getting stronger than ever after this whole year. And it's going to be great to, you know, see you out on the road and see the songs from this new record. So Dee, thank you so much for coming on. It is so appreciated. And we're all looking forward to hearing the new record.
Thank you. Great talking to you. Talk to you again sometime.